On the outside world, we're more in kind of like a classic filmmaking style, but we're going to use like a lot of like long lensing, so you can kind of like feel that perspective from far away as someone could be watching. A lot of like, shots through windows, things that are kind of obscured, and it just has that like peeping Tom kind of thing going on. And on the inside world, we're more in like a wide angle, quirky, closer feel, which you can kind of associate to like security camera footage, and also more robotic, more mechanical types of moves, things that feel less human, and that kind of associates to the lumen language and sense of this non-human thing kind of observing them.
Hi, I am Chad Anderson, one of the hosts of Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify their skill set. You can learn more on filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at @filmmaker_u. Every week, we are delighted to interview a film and TV professional, and this week we are most pleased to be joined by cinematographer Jessica Lee Gagné, whose work includes Mrs. America, Escape at DANNEMORA, and most recently the hit Apple TV series Severance. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite shows. I think one of the most important kind of delineations in terms of Severance was the differences between the inside world or the innie world versus the outie world. It was always, to me, it was always nighttime in the outie world. I know that's not true, but it always felt like it was nighttime in the outie world. It felt distinctly different in terms of there. I guess it was after hours or after work mostly. But was there things you did to make it more so an innie environment versus an outie environment in terms of the design?
I mean, a lot goes into it from every department in that world. Even the actors, like their posture changes from innie to outie, which is actually really interesting. But yeah, you're not wrong. It is mostly nighttime because it is after work. So that was something built in. And I'm someone who loves doing day interiors and exteriors. So there were a lot of things I was craving to try and like lean into. Every time we had like a day scene, I would just have fun with it. But I don't know. So there's a lot of stuff. We had two different kind of styles, and we approach it in a way that it's different, but it's still the same film. And that's like a tough balance to kind of hit. At the beginning, early on, like years ago, when Ben and I were talking about this, there was, okay, well, what's the language inside versus the language outside? We wanted this overarching kind of spy or, lumen feeling, and it's done in different ways. So on the outside world, we're more in kind of like a classic filmmaking style, but we're going to use like a lot of like long lensing, so you can kind of like feel that perspective from far away as someone could be watching. A lot of like, shots through windows, things that are kind of obscured, and it just has that like peeping Tom kind of thing going on. And on the inside world, we're more in like a wide angle, quirky, closer feel, which you can kind of associate to like security camera footage. There's a lot of
Yeah.
security camera style footage, even though it's like very glossy. And also more robotic, more mechanical types of moves, things that feel less human, and that kind of associates to the lumen language and sense of this non-human thing kind of observing them. I don't know if that kind of
No, yeah, that definitely. Yeah, it does. There's a bit of like, it almost feels like the outside world is normal, like everyday typical drama, and then the inside world is almost like a surreal universe with those wide shots and those and kind of, you know,
it's
some
heightened. I think there's this like precise and kind of heightened feeling to it,
yeah.
clinical, that you would think would be off-putting, but because of its beauty, it kind of like puts you in like in a weird headspace. It's like very calming, but then at the same time super alarming. It's a weird balance that happens.
I sort of got into VFX by accident. I always had a technical interest in photography, and especially as it relates to movie making. There's something magical about the ability to believe something is happening when it isn't. So I went as a live action producer into a company called Bob Abel and Associates. Then I would have to, have a meeting about how do we do this effect that's in this commercial, and I never got the straight answer I was looking for. I have camera knowledge, so it's like, since it's kind of ambiguous, why don't I just grab a camera and we'll try it out. You have to figure out what tells the story and use every trick in the book to solve your problem. I am Rob Legato, and this is my course on visual effects.
Personal question for me more so. I live about 15, or I live 15 minutes. I work about 10 minutes away from Bell Works. Um, yeah, I'm right on the street. So when my kids wanted to watch Severance, they watched the first season. I was like a little nervous about it, but they were okay. They're like 13. And they watched the first season. And then afterwards, I took them to Bell Works and I said, do you know what this place is? And they kind of looked around, and it's such a different place in the real world versus the Lumen location, but they start to see things like the big huge walls and those kind of things. Shooting at in that building at Bell Works, what drew you in terms of what you could do with the location in terms of cinematography, and how did it work for Lumen, or what did you take away from the location in terms of deciding on the look of Lumen headquarters basically?
Well, locations, first of all, are extremely important to me. As a cinematographer, it's a huge part of the canvas that you're going to work with. And I got very involved in finding this location specifically. I actually discovered it on a blog because I didn't I didn't feel that we had found the location, and I got a little nervous. So I was like, well, I'm just going to like see what I can find. And looking for abandoned malls, I stumbled upon this images of the abandoned version of this place. I don't know if but like for a long
Yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
My
So
whole life. Yeah.
when I saw the photos, it was abandoned and I was concerned. I didn't even know if we could shoot in it. I asked, I sent it to Ben and to the location manager asking like, is this place, like, can we shoot here? Like, is it open or what's going on? And it had been renovated, which is the version that it's got more colors. There's more life in that place than what we use in the show. It's much more controlled. Like the production design team really makes it slicker and cleans it up so it looks kind of like perfection. But when I look at a space like that, like walking into it, I just want possibility personally. As a DP, it's fun to have variety, and it's fun to have the possibility of shooting scenes in different places and finding such a gem of a location. It became it became part of the language. It became part of the story, this building. It influenced the story quite a bit as well. But when you have all of these options, you can really push the aesthetic to another level. What's hard, though, I have to say, more on a technical level, is the size and scale of it. It's so big
Mm-hmm.
that when you want to try and kind of control or light those places, it's almost impossible. You have to work with like Mother Nature and the sun and
Mm-hmm.
move things in the schedule. So every time we go shoot there, we have like a slate of, let's say we're doing 5 different scenes. We always go in with the idea that we can move scenes around depending on weather or different things like that. I feel like as a DP, I love to get involved in that stuff because I can't overpower sometimes what the universe is giving you.
I'm always curious about the relationship between, because you've worked as both cinematographer and on certain episodes as a director of certain episodes, the relationship between the director and the cinematographer of how much freedom you're given to say, hey, I would like to shoot this way, or I would like to go in this direction. Some directors are very, overbearing sometimes in terms of control. Some are very freeing to say, hey, let you do what you do well and go that direction. How did this work on Severance?
Well, it's different with every director and DP pairing. And, personally, even with my experiences in the past, it's always different. It stems from the director, well, how I see it or how I've lived it so far. It always comes from what the director wants or needs. You kind of have to adapt to that. With Ben, what's amazing is that we have a long history now of working together. So on DANNEMORA, we already kind of like defined aesthetics and tastes and things that we both like. And we have very similar tastes in terms of like the movies we like. So we speak the same language, so I think that there is like a collaboration and like a one-upping of each other and making sure that we're really getting the best version of the thing that we can. We definitely plan going into things, but we are always kind of open to things changing. I think like with Ben, there's an organic process that happens that's quite interesting, and it's been a little bit liberating for me because I feel like I always in the past I've worked with directors that were uh, very focused in on something being something so precise and like already very clear in their minds. Whereas Severance, so many people are involved in this thing, it kind of grows. And I think that Ben's able to kind of stay open to things changing, even though we
Mm-hmm.
we need a plan for this stuff, you know, especially when you go to like a location like Bell Labs, you can't just like wing it. You need to come in with like an approach or like an attempted shot list or storyboard or something, you know. Um,
Sure.
but there's always space with him on the day. Like if something doesn't feel quite right, there's always space to change it and try something else. For me, that's been a learning experience with him because I feel like I always come in like really, I need a plan. Um, but yeah, it changes. It's not always the same. We do rehearse quite a bit. And from those rehearsals, that's where like the visuals are going to stem from. Sometimes it's Ben and sometimes it's me and sometimes it's us together. It's very collaborative. But you feel like you can try things, which is rare. And I think it's also something that makes Severance really special.
I'm always amazed at my level of discomfort. It's done so well. My level of discomfort in particularly the celebration scenes in the office celebration scenes. They're always overdone. They're always weird spinning strobe lights, and it's it's the most tense thing ever. And it's supposed to be, hey, we're having a fun waffle party, but it's not. It's and the in the second season, the marching band, um how do you make that so uncomfortable? Part of it's the editing, but also in the cinematography, just the look of the pushes, just moving in on different characters. It's terrifying sometimes.
I mean, it's a lot of things. I feel like so much comes from performance as well. And just for that specific scene, so many things are going on. And yes, the editing is a big thing. You know, it's like orchestrating the whole thing. But planning key moments is important. And then highlighting those with lighting is important. So, you know, we have these discussions before figuring out what these lighting patterns are, what it's going to look like, but then it'll shift from this colorful thing to red, you know, and highlighting specific intense moments within the storytelling. So it's a lot of things that go into it. I feel like Ben does like certain classic things, you know, certain like classic push-in kind of things or longer lens moments. Intense close-ups is actually a big theme, I think, this season. Even though we're in a scene where like tons of stuff is going on, we're often quite bogged in and tight. And I think that really helps kind of heighten the intensity. You know, you can be tight on someone, but there's all this other stuff going on around them. So it's a combination of a lot of elements to get the intensity. But I think if I were to like figure out the thing that brings it out the most, like in that episode, I think the editing is really the thing to highlight.
You mentioned liking to shoot in daylight, and those kind of things. The most I guess overwhelming episode was Woe's Hollow, shooting outside in the snow, and shooting that whole. It just came in left field, in terms of just introducing the second season and being like, okay, now we're outside on an adventure in the wilderness. What was it like shooting that, with so much, I imagine, natural light? I saw photos of the location. How overwhelming was that?
Uh, I think for all of us, everyone working on the show, we're so used to, you know, shooting in our stages or these locations that we know really well. Everyone knows where everything's going, how they're going to
Mm-hmm.
do their stuff. And it's like, well, we're going to go out in the woods, guys. So just like them, like their innies being out in the wilderness, it was kind of like us. We were in like the same kind of scenario. I think it took a lot of prep. No, I think like I know it took a lot of prep. It took a lot of conversations for people to feel comfortable and like ready to kind of do this at the best that like in the best way they can because we have such a high standard for aesthetics on the show that when you go out in the wild like that, you want to make sure that you can still deliver that really controlled aesthetic. And like that brings me to your question of like how do you deal with the light in these things? Because once again, I'm dealing with Mother Nature and there are no walls to kind of like hide from it. It's really working with the assistant director and with all of the departments and keeping everyone in kind of like a free flow state um, to maximize weather, which is, I always strive to do that. I tend to kind of decide the order that we shoot in. So that just makes it, everyone kind of just needs to be
Mm-hmm.
to play ball. And on a production that big, it's not an easy thing to do. It's lots of conversations and lots of making sure that, you know, we talk about plan A, plan B, and then keep everyone in the loop. But everyone wants the show to look amazing. So we all kind of like bond together to make it work. But there were moments where on the day in the morning, literally, like the foggy scene, the scene where John Turturro's at the desk, and he sees walking in that
Yeah, yeah.
the dream sequence. Originally, that was going to be shot at night, and one day, Ben and I would drive in together to talk about the day's work, and we're in the car, and we're realizing that it's foggy outside. It's like super, super foggy, and we're supposed to do the scene when they're out on the cliff, like with the TV, and they're seeing like the whole view. And I'm like, we can't shoot that scene. And Ben's like, no, like we need the view. And if we don't have the view, what do we do? So I'm like, well, okay, what if we shoot the nightmare sequence day for night? We're gonna have to like bring in different lights and do things differently because you need way more power if it's gonna be shot in the day. So we got to set and basically delivered this news that this was our intention. And yeah, everyone was like, okay, well, great. Well, this is what we're gonna do. No problem. Like the locations were next to each other, and everyone kind of figured out what they needed to do to get it done. And in tricky conditions where we're like getting to places on like four-wheelers, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everyone was able to pivot. The desk was brought out earlier, lights were brought down from New York, and we got this sequence in this magical fog, which we would have never had. So and these things are only possible when you talk through things with people. So you have to go into shooting, like having had these conversations of the potential situations. And our crew's used to it, and the actors are used to it. And the fact that everyone can roll with it is why we can always like hit those magic moments.
I think that's part of the golden thing is that having a crew who's willing to adapt, who's not stuck in their ways, and willing to say, hey, this is where the art form is going, and this is where the moment is going, and okay, let's pull up our sleeves and start working on this new location or new circumstance, or change is part of the ability to be kind of organic about it is really what makes it work really well.
Yeah, and that's like the director and producers and like in cinematographer case for me, like of being able to call that out from the beginning and prep, because like it's not fair to do that on the day. Like people need to know that it's like a possible situation.
Speaking of directing, Chikai Bardo, episode 7. Um, I the Gemma flashbacks of building the story of their relationship. I thought was magical. I just it brought a whole new element to the story, and I think it was crucial that you had that moment in there because that sets up, not to spoil anything, although everyone should have watched Severance by now. Not to spoil anything, but I think the idea that you know this is what this is the wrestling match at the season finale. This is because you have Gemma, and you have this whole backstory, and she's now a person, and there's a relationship there. Tell me what it was like directing this episode.
It was a lot. It was a lot, but it was a beautiful experience, a life-changing experience for me. Um, uh, at the same time, I'm like DPing 6 episodes on the show, so there's that's already very time consuming on a
Sure.
rigorous show. And certain kind of small miracles happened that made this possible for me. For example, I was lucky that some people would not like this, but for me, this was a good thing that it wasn't all one block, my episode. It was a little bit spread out for schedule reasons. So that kind of helped me like dip my toe into it. The other thing that like made this really, because I shot the innie part of the episode, but I've been working with this crew for a long time. So I was able to, while shooting Ben's episodes, also still be able to prep my own in both ways, in both capacity, in the director way and also the cinematographer way. So we kind of got ahead of a lot of things since I wouldn't have like the bandwidth to do it all at the same time. But I was also lucky that I knew the language, I knew the cast, and I knew the crew. So for me, what I needed to focus on was actually just being in the moment, being present with the actors. That's what I knew like I needed to work on because it was kind of the thing that scared me the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like making shots and covering a scene. I don't like to use the word covering, but like we can. It's just how to capture a scene. That's something I know how to do. That's part of what I've been practicing for years with other directors, and I love doing that. But then being present with the actor in the moment and helping them find that magical thing, that was the thing I didn't know if I was capable of doing. But I'm proud of myself because I feel like I did achieve that and it surprised me. But then also working with the writer in terms of developing the character of Gemma, that's something I really took on. And it just came naturally to me. I wanted to do this episode. I wanted it to be a woman telling this story. And there were certain female themes that I just like right from the beginning was like, well, I feel like a woman reacts like this to this kind of thing. I mean, women are different, but like I had to
Yeah.
kind of get in touch with parts of myself because it was the only thing I could hold on to, and especially not having done this before.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now. Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
Yeah, I think it's important that because I'm a college professor, and so part of what I see is that we have women who come into my program who don't necessarily realize that there is a place for women because they think, oh, this is a technical field, this is technical stuff, so this is men's stuff. And I've had women say, oh, I didn't know women did this, and I'm like, no, there are amazing women editors, and there are amazing women cinematographers, and there's amazing women directors, and I keep trying to expose them more to that, to let them know, because they just think, oh, this is kind of, oftentimes this ends up sounding like a boys club, and I'm like, no, there's definitely vision and there's opportunity there for that. So it's really important, the work you're doing.
Super relevant subject right now. You know, sometimes I'm also ask myself, well, am I mad that I didn't try directing earlier because it's something I didn't open myself up to? And I realized that those 15 years of cinematography and of being quite a technical person, it's going to inform the type of director I am today, you know? And like, as I go out into this, I have this whole like skill set that, you know, is really unique to me. But I think that we still have so much work to do on being able to see women in different kinds of productions. We have so many stereotypes of like, oh, women do these kinds of movies, you know, they're the more smaller, sentimental kind of pieces, but that's going to be changing, you know, and I would love to be a part of that change because I feel like the types of things I'm into can be potentially action or bigger or other, you know, other movies on other scales. I feel like we need to challenge those stereotypes because they are in our mind and they do affect like the opportunities that we give to women.
And the opportunities that they seek out, yeah, because they don't think they can. That's what I see on my end of things. And I keep trying to encourage, like, no, like research, find out, because there are women out there doing that, and I'm trying to share as much as I can in that capacity. To that end, my next question, in terms of the overall, because you've talked about directing, you've talked about producing, and you've talked about we've talked about editing as well. What drew you to cinematography? What was it about cinematography that said, hey, this language speaks to me in terms of what I want to do?
Well, it's kind of two things. As a kid, I always kind of had a camera in my hands. I inherited my aunt's cameras really young, like 35 mil cameras, photo cameras. And I don't know, it was just a natural connection. You know, I was just drawn to the object. I learned how to do photography on my own. My mom had like photo books, like how to do photography books, and I would just read them on my way to school. I was naturally like into it. Became the school photographer and the yearbook editor. And I was just always in that kind of thing. It's like side stuff. And then basically when I went to film school, people started, because I just had that one up on the technical photo side. You know, I understood what an f-stop does. And I understood, you know, like, how do you get more depth of field? What is depth of field? These were concepts that were already very much anchored within me. So, you know, in film school, a lot of people are like, getting to play with cameras for the first time. And sometimes that's a huge learning curve, but I kind of had a little bit of I had easier access to that. And everyone was asking me to shoot their projects. I was always the one that people would ask to do their cinematography. And I found comfort in that. So I think I kind of leaned into that because it was just a safer option, you know, like I felt like there was a need for me. So I kind of pushed away the directing thing and went for that just because it came easier.
Speaking of cinematography, because that's what we're talking about, obviously, I want to go back to Severance. One of my favorite things, and it's kind of an ongoing thing, are these crazy long hallway shots. I think as a signature of Severance is these crazy handheld or Steadicam super long hallway shots. They're chaotic and they're tense and they're amazing. And I feel like I didn't know that Bellworks had that long of a hallway or that many hallways. How are these shots done?
Well, they're not at Bellworks.
They're in a studio.
Yeah, we have an intricate, elaborate setup of sets that are all, like for example, MDR, it's on one of our stages, and around it is a maze of hallways. So even to get to this set, you need to like walk for a couple minutes through some hallways. And Jeremy Hindle, the production designer, came up with so many interesting little nooks and crannies in the hallways and just like basic ideas. Like sometimes it's just like there's a donut, we call it the donut, and it's just like a circle. And we can use that. We know that that exists. You use it for whatever mise en scène you want. But yeah, having lots of hallways has helped a lot. But we don't really use Steadicam. It's not really like a tool that we use often in the show, or handheld also. So like these hallway sequences, why they have that weird eerie feeling, I kind of feel like it's also due to the just like the nature of the hallway in terms of the aesthetic. But we use like a homemade rickshaw, custom rickshaw with a lever.
Okay.
Like a remote, there's a remote head on it, because we wanted the camera to feel heavier, more anchored, and remember it's that robotic lumen language. If it was
Sure.
Steadicam, you get a bit of drift and there's a certain organicness that comes with
It's smooth, yeah.
yeah. And if you're working with angles and lines, like the sets are very linear, this
Yeah.
rickshaw kind of setup allows you to take the corners in a smoother way, but everything kind of stays really straight and rigid. If we're doing like if we're not doing very long sequences where we're taking all these corners, we'll even sometimes put the lever head on a proper dolly.
Yeah, the whole set, I mean, there is a kind of a closed frame, kind of like prison-like idea of Lumen, and the 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 framing of the perfect 90-degree angles of every room just kind of encapsulates you in this little enclosed space this whole time. It does feel like solitary confinement in some cases. I want to ask one more question, and we've talked about your life a little bit, but I do want to know, just as an idea, if you weren't doing this, if you were going to take your life in a totally different direction and go into something totally different as a profession, what would you be doing with yourself right now?
Well, there's a lot of things I'd like to try, but I've always been fascinated with architecture, and I feel like I would have loved to test that out in life, to be an architect.
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it. It does have a visual capacity as well, especially with how much you've talked about set design and production design and room and space. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like,
Fantastic.
how are you framing light and life? Like, I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do like the framing and light of your background behind you. It does work really well. Um, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate everything you had to share with us. That's going to be it for us for Filmmaker U. My name is Chad Anderson. Again, you can follow us on filmmakeru.com or at filmmaker_u. Thank you very much, Jessica. I appreciate it. And
Thank
everyone else, we'll see you in the next episode.